I poisoned my husband's coffee that morning, not because I hated him, but because my sister whispered it would set us both free from the debt she'd buried us in. She laughed at his funeral, right there in the front pew of St. Patrick's Cathedral, leaning into me with that saccharine southern drawl she'd picked up from her Hamptons weekends. God, Addie, you're so lucky. He's gone, and now you get the payout. Fresh start, sis. I smiled through the tears, my gloved hand, still smelling faintly of arsenic, gripping the hymnal like a lifeline, knowing she'd be the one choking on regret when the lawyer's voice echoed her name into oblivion. It was a Tuesday in late October, the kind of crisp New York autumn day where the leaves on Central Park's maples burned like warnings you ignore until they scorch your skin. I'd always been the good sister, the one who cleaned up Miranda's messes since we were kids dodging our father's belt in that cramped Queen's walk-up. She was the wild one, the beauty queen with the killer smile, and the credit cards maxed out on Manolos and martinis. I was Addison, the accountant, the fixer, the fool who believed family meant swallowing the shards. Our story started innocent enough, or at least that's how I'd tell it to the mirror on those sleepless nights. Miranda and I grew up sharing a twin bed, whispering dreams under faded Mets posters while Mom chain-smoked Virginia Slims in the kitchen. Dad was a cop, NYPD through and through, until a bullet from a Harlem drug bust ended that chapter in '98. Left us with a pension that barely covered the rent and a void Miranda filled with rebellion, shoplifting Lancome at Sephora, joyrides, and stolen cabs. I covered for her every time, forging notes from school, pawning my own savings to bail her out of juvie at 16. By the time I met Ethan, I was 28, buried in spreadsheets at Deloitte, dreaming of a life that didn't reek of regret. He was a tech whiz, fresh off an IPO that turned his startup into a 9-figure beast. We met at a rooftop bar in Soho, him in a rumpled button-down, me nursing a gin and tonic after a 12-hour audit. You look like you could use a knight in shining coat, he joked, and just like that, I fell hard. We married in a civil ceremony at City Hall, no frills, just us and a bodega cake. Miranda was my maid of honor, all sequins and spite, already nursing a grudge because Ethan saw through her charm offensive from day one. You're too good for her, Addie, he'd say after she'd crash our dinner parties, eyes glassy from whatever cocktail she'd chased with Coke. But I defended her. Always. She's family. Blood's thicker than suspicion. The first crack came 3 years in, when Ethan's company hit a rough patch. The dot-com hangover lingered, investors pulling out like rats from a sinking ship. We were okay. Our brownstone in Brooklyn Heights was mortgaged to the hilt, but my salary kept the lights on. Then Miranda called, voice trembling like a leaf in a gale. Addie, I need help. Big help. She'd started a consulting firm, code for a Ponzi scheme targeting rich widows in the Upper East Side. Embezzled millions, she said, but it was just a misunderstanding. The feds were closing in, and if they caught her, it'd be federal time, 20-plus years in some white-collar hellhole. I should have hung up. Should have told her to lawyer up and face the music. But she sobbed about our childhood, about Dad's grave, about how I'd always been her hero. And Ethan. God, Ethan. He found out somehow, hacked her emails, the paranoid bastard, and confronted me. This ends now, Addison. We're not her getaway car. We fought like animals that night, plates shattering against the exposed brick walls. He threatened to go to the authorities himself, said he'd divorce me if I didn't cut her off. I begged, bargained, broke. In the end, I confessed everything to Miranda over burner phones and encrypted apps. I'll handle it, I promised. I'll cook the books at work, funnel some audits your way to mask the trails. Just disappear for a while. Go to that aunt in Florida. She did, vanishing to Miami with a new dye job and a fake ID. I slaved for months, falsifying ledgers, siphoning client funds through shell accounts I'd never dreamed I'd touch. It was small potatoes at first, enough to cover her restitution, keep the wolves from her door. But greed's a virus, and Miranda caught it bad. She started demanding more. One last score, Addie. For us. I complied, deeper into the rabbit hole, until the debt ballooned to 7 figures. Ethan's company recovered, but our savings evaporated. He suspected, of course, late nights at the office, my sudden interest in offshore banking. We slept in separate rooms, the air between us thick as fog off the East River. Then came the accident, or what we called the accident. Ethan was driving back from a board meeting in Midtown, rain slicking the FDR drive like oil on water. His Tesla hydroplaned, flipped twice, and burst into flames under the Williamsburg Bridge. The cops ruled it mechanical failure. Brake lines corroded, they said. But I knew better. Miranda had confessed in a panic call 2 weeks prior. She'd tampered with his car during one of her surprise visits, a desperate bid to scare him into silence after he'd tipped off a PI about her scams. Just a loose wire, Addie. To make him swerve, you know? But he fixed it. Or thought he did. She'd meant to warn me off helping her more, to eliminate the threat. But the corrosion? That was the twist of fate, or karma's cruel joke. When the investigators came knocking, I lied through my teeth. He was stressed, working too hard, probably skipped maintenance. They bought it because I was the grieving widow, composed in black Chanel, eyes dry as the Sahara. Miranda attended the funeral, of course, flying in from Miami, all condolences and crocodile tears. That's when she leaned in, breath hot against my ear. You're lucky, sis. No more fighting. And that life insurance? 7 mil, tax-free. Fresh start. Lucky. The word festered like a splinter under my nail. I collected the payout quietly, wiring chunks to anonymous accounts to settle her debts, keeping the rest to rebuild what she'd shattered. But every night, staring at the ceiling fan whirring like a guillotine, I replayed her laugh. Lucky. As if she'd scripted the whole damn tragedy, and I was the understudy who'd taken the fall. For months, I played the part. Widowed socialite lunches in the village, therapy sessions where I spilled half-truths about marital strain. Miranda kept her distance at first, texts dripping with faux concern. How's my brave girl holding up? Miss you. But as the anniversary of Ethan's death approached, she circled back, hungry as a shark scenting chum. Addie, we need to talk. That money, it's ours, right? For the family we lost. I met her at a dive bar in Hell's Kitchen, the kind with sticky floors and jukebox blues. She looked good, tanned, toned, a far cry from the strung-out schemer I'd bailed out. Over whiskey's neat, she laid it out. She wanted half. You wouldn't have it without me, she said, eyes narrowing like a poker player's bluff. I made sure Ethan stopped meddling. We're even now. Even. The gall of it twisted my gut. I sipped slow, letting the burn mirror the one in my chest. You killed him, Randy. Or tried to. And I covered for you. Lied to the cops, the insurance adjusters, everyone. That's not even. That's indentured servitude. She waved it off, that manicured hand fluttering like a dismissal. Details, sis. Water under the bridge. Now, about the wire transfer. I left her there, buzzing with the realization that forgiveness was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not anymore. Revenge isn't a lightning bolt. It's a slow poison, dripped one drop at a time. And I had the antidote right there in my veins. Ethan's will, the one he'd updated in secret after discovering her schemes. I'd found it tucked in his desk drawer, amid tax returns and love letters we'd written in our honeymoon phase. It wasn't the windfall she imagined. It was a reckoning. But first, I had to play along. Let her think she had the upper hand. I started small, agreeing to loans that vanished into her lifestyle, tracking every cent through apps only a forensic accountant like me could hide. She grew bolder, flying up for weekends, crashing in the brownstone like she owned it. See? We're good again, she'd coo, popping champagne in the kitchen where I'd once brewed Ethan's coffee. I'd nod, smile, and spike her mimosas with just enough Ambien to loosen her tongue. Confessions spilled. The Ponzi's victims, a Park Avenue socialite who'd slit her wrists after the crash. The PI Ethan hired, now relocated, to a shallow grave in Jersey wetlands, courtesy of one of her low-life boyfriends. You're a monster, I whispered one night, as she rambled in a drugged haze on the guest room couch. She giggled, slurring, takes one to know one, Addie. You poisoned the well long before I touched his brakes. She wasn't wrong. I'd borne her sins like a crown of thorns, but thorns draw blood eventually. As winter thawed into a muggy May, I set the trap. Invited her to a reconciliation dinner at Le Bernardin, the Michelin-starred fortress where Wall Street kings seal deals. She arrived in red silk, diamonds winking like lies. Over foie gras and vintage Bordeaux, I laid out the olive branch. I've been thinking. The money's tainted. Let's donate it. Start a foundation in Ethan's name. For victims of fraud. Her fork clattered. Donate. Are you high? That's our ticket out. Our. I echoed, voice steady as steel. You mean yours? I've already spoken to the lawyers. The will specifies everything. She paled, but recovered with that chameleon charm. Bluff all you want, sis. Blood trumps paper. We finished the meal in brittle silence, the clink of silverware like countdown ticks. She stormed out, cab-hailing into the night, but not before hissing, "You'll regret this. I know things, Addie. Things that'd bury you." Let her stew. I had the high ground now, perched like a gargoyle over her unraveling empire. The weeks blurred into a haze of surveillance and spite. I hired a PI of my own, ex-FBI, the kind who bills by the shadow and delivers dirt in encrypted drops. His reports painted Miranda's Miami life in vivid strokes, a string of sugar daddies, each richer and more disposable than the last, a new scam brewing. This one targeting crypto bros with promises of insider traits. She was flipping scripts faster than a con artist's deck, cozying up to one mark while ghosting another, always one step ahead of the subpoenas. But cracks showed. A voicemail at 3 a.m. "Addie, you bitch. I talked to Ethan's sister. She remembers me visiting that week. Thinks I had something to do with the crash." Panic laced her words, the drawl cracking like thin ice. I deleted it, filed it away for the dossier. Ethan's sister, Lila, prim, Protestant, the polar opposite of our Catholic chaos, had always hated Miranda. Called her the gold-digging harpy at family Thanksgivings. If Lila suspected, it was only a matter of time before she connected dots I'd painted over with lies. I doubled down, feeding Miranda just enough rope. Wired her 50 grand with a note, for old times. But the wool stands. She bit, of course, blowing it on a yacht party in Biscayne Bay, Instagram flaunting bottle service and bikinis that screamed desperation. That's when I struck the first blow, not with fists, but with filings. Anonymous tips to the SEC, laced with her old account numbers. Raids followed, headlines in the Post. Ponzi princess flees feds again? She called, screaming into the line. "This is you, isn't it? You Judas. Family helps family." I replied coolly, echoing her funeral whisper. "Consider it tough love." She flipped then, allying with ghosts from our past. Our cousin Tommy, the sleazy attorney who'd gotten her off on that '08 check-kiting charge, suddenly surfaced with affidavits claiming I'd coerced her into the schemes. Protective big sister gone rogue. The tabloid spun it, painting me as the villain in a Lifetime movie plot. Reporters camped outside the brownstone, mics thrust like daggers. "Ms. Hargrove, did you know about your sister's fraud? Any involvement in your husband's death?" I stonewalled, lawyered up with Ethan's old firm, white shoe sharks who ate scandals for breakfast. But the stress gnawed, manifesting in migraines that blurred spreadsheets into accusations. Nights, I'd wander the empty house, Ethan's cologne still faint in his closet, whispering apologies to his ghost. "I did it for us, baby. To keep her away. But ghosts don't forgive, they haunt." Miranda escalated, crossing lines even I wouldn't touch. A package arrived, FedEx, no return address, containing printouts of my falsified audits, timestamps glaring like indictments. Tucked inside, a note in her looping script, "Your turn to run, sis." Or should I say, Addison the Fixer Hargrove. My heart jackhammered. If those hit the DA's desk, I'd be staring at conspiracy charges, maybe accessory after the fact to vehicular homicide. Vehicular. The word tasted like ash. I confronted her via video call, her face pixelated in some neon-lit condo, eyes wild. "Why, Randy? After everything?" She leaned in, breath fogging the lens. "Because you think you're clean. You covered for me, sure, but you liked it. The power. Playing God with numbers. Ethan's death? Collateral. Like Dad's bullet was for all of us. Dad." She weaponized him now, dragging his ghost into the fray. "He'd be ashamed of you," she spat. The good daughter, turning state's evidence on her own blood. I hung up, while rising. But doubt crept in, a serpent in my garden. Had I liked it? The thrill of bending rules for her, the God complex of salvation? Ethan's will loomed like a guillotine, his estate, the brownstone, the residuals from his patents, all earmarked not for me, but for a trust, for victims of financial crimes. To right wrongs I couldn't, he'd scrawled in the codicil, dated the week before he died. I'd found it, hidden it, because admitting it meant admitting I'd driven him to despair. The climax brewed over a sweltering July 4th weekend. Miranda texted coordinates, a rooftop bar in Chelsea, fireworks bursting like false promises over the Hudson. "Truce," she wrote. "One drink." Then we end this. I went, dressed in white linen like a surrender flag, recorder app humming in my clutch. She was there, perched on a stool, a Manhattan sweating in the heat. Addie, she purred, sliding a glass my way. To freedom. We clinked, the city sprawling below like a conquered kingdom. She talked fast, weaving a web of half-truths. Remorse for Ethan, promises to go straight, a plea for one last wire to disappear for good. I nodded, sipped, let her hang herself with details. The PI's name, the boyfriend's Jersey dump site, the widow's suicide note she'd burned. It was gold, admissible in any court from here to Albany. But as the finale boomed, reds and blues painting her face demonic, she leaned close, voice of venomous thread. You know, I didn't just loosen the brakes. I told him everything. The night before, in that email you thought I deleted. He forgave you, Addie. Said he'd protect us both. Then he drove off anyway. The world tilted. Forgiven? Ethan knew I'd cooked the books for her, knew the risks, and still loved me. Fireworks drowned my gasp, but inside, something fractured. She'd played me again, flipping the betrayal like a coin. I stood, unsteady, the city lights mocking my naivety. The will I managed. It changes nothing. She laughed, that same funeral cackle. Oh, it changes everything. Because I have a copy. And a notary who'll swear you forged it. Desperate widow, grasping at straws. I fled into the night, subway rattling like Judgment Day, piecing it together. She'd anticipated the will, probably swiped a draft during one of her visits. Schemer to the core, always 3 moves ahead. Back home, I tore through files, confirming the worst. Her forgery was flawless, dated post-Ethan's death, leaving everything to my beloved sister, Miranda. Checkmate. Or so she thought. The reading was set for August 15th, a muggy Monday in the mahogany-paneled offices of Hargrove and Associates on Park Avenue. Lila insisted, Ethan's bloodkin, she had pull. Miranda arrived first, radiant in emerald green, the color of envy. I slipped in last, anonymous in a crowd of distant cousins and estate lawyers, my face half hidden by oversized shades. The attorney, a silver fox named Hargrove, no relation, just irony, cleared his throat, spectacles glinting. Ethan Hargrove's last will and testament. He droned through bequests, stocks to charities, art to museums. Miranda preened, fingers drumming like victory marches. Then the kicker. To my wife, Addison Hargrove, I leave the brownstone, residuals, and a letter to be read privately. Her head snapped. What letter? Hargrove unfolded it, voice steady. Addison, if you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it back that night. I knew about Miranda. The schemes, the car. I fixed the brakes myself, thought it was vandals at first. But I also knew you covered for her. Forgave you for that. Loved you despite it. Gasps rippled. Miranda's face drained to chalk. I updated the will twice, he continued via the page. First, to cut her out. Second, after talking to her. Yes, I confronted Miranda alone. She begged, swore reform. I believed her for you. Gave her a chance. If she blew it, well, this is the failsafe. The room froze as Hargrove revealed the codicil. Everything to the victim's trust, unless Miranda turned herself involuntarily. With proof of confession, he added, nodding to me. I slid the recorder across the table, our rooftop chat, her admissions crystal clear. She lunged, nails raking air. You bitch. It's all lies. Lila stood, voice thunder. Sit down, or I'll call the cops right now. Chaos erupted, shouts, Miranda sobbing, lawyers dialing. But in the melee, she locked eyes with me, a final flip. Not rage, but something raw. Regret? Or calculation? You win, Addie, she whispered as uniforms cuffed her wrists. But blood's forever. They let her out, the door slamming like a period. I collapsed into a chair, the letter clutched to my chest. Victory tasted like defeat. Ethan's forgiveness a balm, but the cost? A sister in stripes, a life in ruins. Was I the hero, or just the last domino? In the aftermath, the city felt alien, its pulse mocking my hollowed core. Miranda's arrest hit the feeds like a meteor. Tech heir's sister nabbed in Ponzi plot. Widow's revenge. Pundits dissected it on Fox and CNN, dividing into camps. Me the avenging angel, or the conniving kin who waited too long. Online forums buzzed. Sister slay or blood betrayal. Strangers picking sides in a war they half understood. I avoided it all, holing up in the brownstone with takeout tie and Ethan's old jazz records spinning low. Lila visited once, bearing casseroles and condolences. He was protecting you, even then, she said, stirring soup like a peace offering. But her, God help her soul. We hugged awkwardly, the rift of bloodlines mending in shared grief. She didn't ask about the poison. Wait, no, that was my fever dream. The arsenic, a metaphor I'd clung to in guilt. Ethan died clean, mechanically, fate's indifferent hand. But in my nightmares, it was me pouring the cup, Miranda's whisper the catalyst. The trial was a circus, fall turning to winter under fluorescent courtroom glare. Manhattan DA's office threw the book. Wire fraud, conspiracy, even manslaughter for the PI's disappearance. Body never found. But her boyfriend flipped like a weather vane, trading testimony for time served. Miranda's defense painted her as victim, abused by dad's ghost, enabled by my codependence. Addison Hargrove was the architect. Her lawyer thundered, waving those forged audits like scarlet letters. She bore the sins, but orchestrated the fall. I testified, voice steady under oath. The calls, the covers, the rooftop confession. Jurors shifted, eyes flickering between sympathy and suspicion. Was I saint or sinner? When I detailed the funeral mockery, lucky, that poison word, gasps echoed. Miranda stared daggers from the dock. Her Hampton's glow faded to jailhouse pallor. Once, during recess, she cornered me in the hall, chains rattling. You think this ends me? I told the feds about your books, Addie. Every falsified entry. My blood iced. They investigated. Cleared me. You. She smirked, but it cracked. Tears streaking mascara. Why'd you do it? I was drowning. You threw the anchor. Because I loved you. I whispered. And hate's just love inverted. The twist dropped on day 12, courtesy of a thumb drive from Ethan's cloud server, unearthed by the prosecution's forensics team. Emails between him and Miranda, post-confrontation. Her pleas, his reluctant aid. A single wire transfer to her reform fund. For Addie's sake, he'd written. One chance. But attached. Her reply. A forwarded chain to a hitman contact. If he pushes, handle it. The breaks weren't fate. They were funded. The courtroom detonated. Miranda crumpled, wailing denials. It was bluff. To scare him. But the jury didn't buy it. Deliberated 4 hours. Returned guilty on all counts. 25 to life. The judge intoned. Gavel falling like God's own hammer. Outside, rain lashed the steps, reporters swarming. I slipped away, hailing a cab to the cemetery. Ethan's plot in Greenwood, Brooklyn's haunted hills. Kneeling in mud, I traced his name etched in granite. You gave her a chance I couldn't, I murmured. Forgave what I buried. A hand on my shoulder. Lila, umbrella in tow. She wrote you a letter. Through her lawyer. I took it, envelope crisp as new snow. Inside, Miranda's script, shaky. Addie, you were right. Blood's forever, but mine's poisoned. Don't visit. Just remember the good. The bed, the whispers. Love, your monster sis. I burned it that night. Ashes scattering from the brownstone roof like confetti at a funeral. The trust dispersed millions to the socialite's daughters, the widows she'd fleeced. I kept the house, sold the rest, started over in a one-bedroom in Ditmas Park, auditing nonprofits pro bono. Therapy unpacked the codependence. The savior complex dad's death welded into my bones. You're not her keeper, my shrink said. Or his ghost. But closure's a myth. 6 months post-sentencing, a package arrived. No sender, just a Miami postmark. Inside, a locket from our childhood, Mom's, with a folded note. Found this in storage. Thought you'd want it. P.S. The hitman? Bluff. But the P.I. Forgive me that. R. Forgive. The word hung, debatable as dawn. Had she flipped one last time? Truth or taunt? The boyfriend's testimony wavered on appeal, whispers of coercion. Forums reignited. Innocent until. I donated the locket to a shelter, but kept the note, tucked in Ethan's letter like a scar. Now, as spring greens the park, I walk those paths where leaves once warned. Am I redeemed? Or just the survivor, tallying wins in a game rigged by kin? Miranda rots in Bedford Hills, writing appeals to ghosts. I live, haunted but whole. Lucky? Hell no. But free, finally, from the debt of devotion. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine was lukewarm, laced with regret's bitter aftertaste. In America, where family feuds fuel fall empires, no one's wholly right or wrong. We just keep flipping the script, chasing that debatable ever after.